Hey, good to see you, Ernie. Tim, I want your votes, not your applause. It's good to see everyone. Thank you for coming. It's Math Day. This is a day I'm excited for. Listen, we want to start today just by talking a little bit about the past year. It's been a challenging year for our country, but as I expressed last week in our State of the State, I believe our state is thriving. We're finding a way to get resources where they're needed. There's still a lot more work to be done, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit in today's budget. Specifically, in the last budget year, in our current fiscal year, 6 things we wanted to highlight is the tremendous progress we're making in our corporate franchise. Don't believe everything you read on social media. Our corporate franchise is actually stronger than ever. We had 280,000 formations, about 280,000 formations in the first 10 months of 2025, a 14% increase in 2024. Today, as I stand before you, there are more entities in Delaware, registered, incorporated in Delaware than at any other time in history, and that's something we're proud of. Second, we've relieved medical debt, crippling medical debt for over 18,000 Delawareans, actually only utilizing a fraction of the budget in last year's budget to do that. So there's more still to come. Through the Your Voice, Your Choice program in partnership with Donors Choose, over 4,000 Delaware teachers in recent months have been able to direct resources to their classroom in ways that they think they can get support to teach literacy. More than 41,000 books have been purchased, over 18,000 instructional aids. We've made historical housing investments in smart growth in affordable units. We're not there yet. We're making considerable progress in permitting reform so that the cost of constructing houses and the cost of renovating houses comes down across our state. We've supported entrepreneurs. Nearly 50 entrepreneurs have collectively received millions of dollars, $14 million from the SSBCI program, which is a federal program. Our full expenditure of that has enabled us to get $20 million, an even larger amount to invest in our small businesses this year. And a few months ago, as I think everybody here knows, when the federal government shut down and there were no resources to feed our population, we acted immediately to make sure benefits were protected for more than 60,000 families. We start with principles when we do our budget. The 2 principles that guide us are efficiency and transparency. Every Delawarean deserves a government that's transparent, accountable, and efficient, that takes their tax dollar and treats every penny like the precious resource that it is. It's also important we budget responsibly. When there are large gaps between the money we're spending and the money we're taking in, we have to make sure we're bridging that gap and acting responsibly with taxpayer funds. With that in mind, here's my first and only graph of the day. I think for me, this is what guided our budget preparations and discussion. We wanted to get under 5% budget operating growth. If you start at the beginning of the chart in 2024, you will see that there's a 9.1% gap between what we're spending, that's 9.94%, the operating budget growth, and the revenue growth, 0.85%. So that's just 3 budget years ago. Our recommended budget reduces the structural deficit from fiscal year 26 by over 70%, from 7.37% operating budget expenditure growth to we started at 7.37% operating budget growth and 2.43% revenue growth. In the current fiscal year, we're bridging that gap down to 4.99% operating growth and 3.52% revenue growth. And we're doing it in a way that's responsible. As I've said time and again, we don't believe in going around and cutting government with chainsaws. We believe in doing it with scalpels, going line by line, looking intelligently at the services Delawareans are receiving, and making sure those that we can make more efficient, we work to make more efficient. Those that aren't working or don't make sense, we scale down. Our priorities in expenditures The things we prioritize, there are 4 things: kids, housing, healthcare, and workforce. Kids, housing, healthcare, and workforce. You will see it throughout this budget. By kids, stronger classrooms today mean a stronger Delaware tomorrow. We need to make sure we invest in early childhood education so that Delaware kids are more prepared than ever before to enter kindergarten. We are investing in our housing. Housing is a human right, and we're increasing affordability, speeding up construction while prioritizing smart growth, which actually increases opportunities for open space and farmland preservation, and also should make it easier for first-time home buyers to find an affordable home. Every Delawarean deserves access to affordable and quality health care. We're expanding access, tackling costs, and promoting healthier communities throughout Delaware. Listen, I'm the first to say that if you look at our healthcare system nationally, it's not something that makes a whole lot of sense. But amidst that federal chaos, we are actually collaborating with the federal government like never before, with the largest competitive grant that Delaware has ever received, $157 million this year. I know many legislators partnered with ideas for that grant, and we're excited about putting that money to work to improve healthcare for Delawareans. And finally, our workforce. State employees keep Delaware running. We're raising teacher pay and increasing salaries for government workers so that we can stay competitive, provide the highest quality service to Delawareans, and continue to attract and retain the best and brightest workers. With respect to investing in our children, I mentioned early child care investment. This budget includes historic investments in early child care, nearly $50 million, expanding high-quality, affordable early childhood education opportunities through a child care hub, coordinating child care investments with additional funding for purchase of care, and also putting to work another competitive federal grant. We recently received an $11 million federal grant specifically targeted for early child care across our state. We're providing literacy support for schools. We still have a literacy emergency in our state, and we're taking lessons from the initial deployment of emergency literacy funding and continuing that, making sure students have all the resources that should be available to them in every community across our state, the highest quality resources. They can all reach their full literacy potential. The state is going to distribute funds based on demonstrated commitment to evidence-based literacy instruction. That's accountability. Reading pilot programs using the same successful funding model that was employed during the high-dosage tutoring effort. We're implementing Delaware's new education funding system. Now, the details of that funding system have not yet been finalized. We hope it will be before the legislature this year. But we're supporting the Public Education Funding Commission as they look to overhaul Delaware's public education funding model. This budget includes funds to ensure that all districts and charters are prepared to implement an equitable and transparent funding model. It's really important that communities, that parents across our state are well informed about what these funding changes mean for their kid and their schools. As I mentioned, housing is another priority. There's going to be continued targeted rental assistance for those who need it most. Ongoing support for low-income individuals who require affordable housing and support services through the SRAP program. We're strengthening Delaware's response to homelessness, making sure there are additional resources to provide low-barrier funding for homeless services to ensure immediate support and stability to individuals and families who need the most help. We're continuing support for the Housing Development Fund, maintaining an enhanced level of funding to provide homeownership counseling, emergency home repairs, down payment, and settlement assistance to make sure those who are at risk of losing their home, we provide them all the resources so they can stay in their home. And those who are on the cusp and potentially have opportunities to get into a home, we do everything we can to make sure they can do so affordably. We're enhancing mortgage assistance opportunities and also expanding the Downtown Development District program. In healthcare, this budget, the state budget, includes targeted Medicaid investments. The Medicaid program is changing nationally. That creates great risk to many vulnerable Delaware families. We're investing to make sure Delawareans have access to the critical care they need to lead healthier lives. As I referenced earlier, we're expanding rural health care access in collaboration with the federal government. We're investing in Delaware's health infrastructure, including the development of Delaware's first medical school, enhanced training opportunities and educational opportunities for nurses and physicians' assistants and other frontline healthcare workers, as well as increasing the number of mobile health units and infusing our healthcare system with 2026 and 2030 and beyond technology to serve Delaware patients faster and better than ever before. We're also investing in Delaware's direct service professionals, increasing the reimbursement rate to support those who care for our most vulnerable in line with the McNesby Act. We're improving access to fresh and nutritious foods. We're establishing a SNAP Double Up Bucks food incentive program that incentivizes our vulnerable friends and neighbors on SNAP to choose healthier options and get more bang for their buck when they make that choice. Finally, on workforce, as I mentioned, we're increasing pay for Delaware public educators in line with the PEC recommendation, and we're providing a salary increase for all state employees. We're also expanding apprenticeship opportunities statewide with a private match. We're making a public investment in all 3 counties with a private match. And without further ado, I want to thank the budget team who's done tremendous work for months putting this budget together, and welcome up the Director of our Office of Management and Budget, Brian Maxwell.
Thank you, Governor. When OMB began developing the fiscal year 2027 budget, in September with our agencies, the cost drivers totaled $524.5 million. Medicaid, well, let me start over. Cost drivers should be defined as increase in inflationary costs to government without a change in level of service. This is just maintaining the same level of service that we currently have today, taking into account inflation. So that totaled $524.5 million. Medicaid, personnel cost, education unit count accounted for 66% of this total. The remaining 33% comprised of health care, related costs and programs, technology, debt service, and the annualization of legislation that has passed the General Assembly. The fiscal year cost drivers that I just reviewed represented an 8% increase over the fiscal year 2026 operating budget. So if we could just change the slide real quick. Yes, okay. So based on December DFAC for fiscal year 2027, we had available resources of $7,098 million. If you were to compare that to our current year appropriations of $7,085.1 million, that only leaves us $12.9 million to go against the $524.5 million in cost drivers. So we had a starting appropriation deficit of $511.6 million around the September timeframe. So my team, in collaboration with many of the state agencies, worked on solutions. The first solution was a critical evaluation of door openers. This evaluation provided resources of $107.8 million in the areas of Medicaid, education unit growth, purchase of care, and correction health care. The next solution deployed was reductions, reallocations, and switch funds. Again, in partnership with state agencies and in accordance with budget instructions, this solution provided $131 million in solutions in the form of a balanced 1% budget reduction and a 1% switch funding across state government. The next solution of reductions of one-times and cash to capital and reprogramming provided resources of $168.7 million. Lastly, we have a proposed revenue package that at a 98% funding level of $146.9 million. Those 4 solutions provided $554.4 million to offset the $511.6 million starting deficit. leaving us with $42.8 million in strategic investments, which I will touch on the next few slides. This leaves us with a balanced financial plan. As the governor mentioned, investing in our children is a priority of the administration. $25.3 million in additional funding for purchase of care, $9.9 million in education unit growth, an $8 million investment in the Delaware Early Childhood Care and Education Alliance. These funds, along with the recently awarded preschool development grant Birth to Five, will strengthen the early care and education systems for children. The budget maintains funding for the following two items that support the literacy emergency and teacher-driven programs. And last but not least, $2.8 million supporting the planned implementation of education funding reform for the 2027-2028 school year. Housing remains at the forefront of the administration's priorities. The majority of these investments that you see are capital bill related, but I will highlight that there's a strategic investment of $1 million for homelessness response and stabilization to be administered by the Delaware State Housing Authority. Investing in our health care, $139 million for Medicaid. This increase represents the cost associated with managed care organization contracts, a rate increase for direct service professionals, and the annualization of rate increases for skilled nursing and mental health professionals based on recent rate studies, in addition to the inclusion of biomarker coverage. $34.2 million for contracts related to correctional, medical, and pharmacy. $12.6 million for growth and annualization of community and residential rehabilitation services. $10.1 million for a change at the federal level regarding SNAP. The administrative cost share that is currently in place with the federal government allows for a 75% federal share versus a 25% cost share with the state. That'll be changing in the upcoming year to a 50-50 cost share. And so we're having to allocate additional funding for that. Just taking a moment here, currently SNAP benefits are paid 100% at the federal level. However, due to recent changes at the federal level, beginning in October of 2027, our cost share will now be dependent on our error rate as a state. And so there is an investment of approximately $900,000 for our case reading team to lower the state's error rate. The goal of that initiative is to lower our rate below 6% to maintain 100% federal cost share. $2 million to continue lead remediations in partnership with other federal funding that we received from the EPA. $1.5 million to improve food access for nutritious programs. $1.5 million to assist Medicaid participants with recent federal changes around frequency of eligibility redeterminations and work/volunteerism requirements. Investing in our workforce, $68.9 million represents year 3 of 4 of the Public Education Compensation Commission recommendations, which gets teacher starting salaries to $56,243 in fiscal year 2027. This also includes funding for educator steps. $21.7 million provides a 2% salary increase for state employees. $31.5 million to fund existing and anticipated collective bargaining agreements, and $1.5 million in additional funds for apprenticeship and workforce training. Investing in safe and stable communities. This budget includes $5 million to support proposed legislation that provides hardship waivers of fines and fees for defendants least able to pay them. The next two investments total $4.4 million, and it provides state police with the technology and the equipment necessary to perform their duties. And $1 million in support of the arts through a local government beautification initiative. Now, these investments were only made available based on the hard work of my team, which I have to give a lot of credit to. I don't come up with all these ideas. It's not one person, but many. But $168.7 million in reductions of one-times and reprogramming of cash to capital, $65.2 million in budget savings through responsible budgeting, efficiencies, and targeted reductions. And last but not least, $65.8 million in utilization of a sheet special fund to maintain our contribution to other post-employment benefits. Transitioning to the governor's recommended bond bill, which totals $934.4 million, $265.5 million is for improving schools. This includes $157.4 million for approved school construction and renovation projects. It provides $16.5 million for each of the 3 higher education institutions, $10 million for Delaware State University Stadium, $30.2 million for deferred maintenance, $9.3 million for K-12 network infrastructure, and $9.1 million for school and safety measures. $51.3 million in court, National Guard, and correctional facilities to ensure safe operations. $47.1 million to continue innovation and growth in Delaware's economy. These economic tools are focused on helping small businesses grow, hire, and thrive. $41.1 million for environmental preservation, including shoreline management, water infrastructure projects. Oh, we're catching up. In addition, this budget maintains the real estate transfer tax earmarks of $10 million each for farmland preservation and open space. $91 million for modernization of state government systems, including ERP, health and social services, technology, and public safety communications. Infrastructure investments of $119.2 million, such as statewide facility improvements, transportation, libraries, and trails. The proposed revenue package to support this fiscal year 2027 GRB has really 4 components. $81 million to support the modernization of business formation fees, $60 million by responsibly raising the sheet cap. Currently, state law has a sheet cap of $554 million. We're recommending that that cap be raised to $614 million. We have an adjustment of $18.9 million to the tobacco tax across multiple product categories. And last but not least, we have a revenue reduction set aside to establish Delaware's first film tax credit to support creative economic growth. So the fiscal year 2027 recommended budget is $6,938.3 million. As the governor mentioned, this is 4.99% budget growth, excluding our $29.0 million in one-times. We set aside $85.5 million in the grant and aid bill. The capital budget, which I mentioned, was $934.4 million. 2 components of that: state capital projects of $656.6 million and transportation at $277.8 million. What you will see on the slide, just go back real quick. Yep. The asterisks on here represent our general fund cash appropriations of $7,245 million, which is inclusive of the proposed revenue package that I just shared with you. The fiscal year 2027 financial plan does not depend on $469.3 million in the budget stabilization. We do not rely on any contributions from the stabilization fund. So that's kind of where we are. I'm going to call the governor up just to kind of wrap up the presentation, but I just want to thank you all for coming.
Great, thanks again to Brian and the whole budget team, as well as our Secretary of Finance, Michael Smith. So these are the 6 things we want to leave you with. First is lights, camera, action. We're putting in place the first film tax credit program in Delaware with the hopeful support of the legislature. We're looking to transform healthcare by getting the largest competitive grant award the state's received out on the street to benefit Delawareans across our state. We're investing in bright beginnings for Delawareans. We continue to recognize that a place to call home is vitally important for people across our state, and make sure we're investing in not just homelessness response, but also affordable housing investments, and making sure that the regulation of housing is appropriate to incentivize the building of new housing and renovation of existing housing. We're driving growth on Main Street with neighborhood small business lending and EDGE 2.0 grants, the SSBCI program I mentioned, federal program, as well as downtown development districts. And finally, poverty is not a crime. There's been an effort for years to reduce fines and fees. One of the limiting factors on that has been that the fines and fees money is being used today to provide critical public safety services. And this budget, this recommended budget, includes resources, $5 million, to replace those fines and fees so we can stop putting the burden of funding our public safety services on our most vulnerable friends. So we're making investments from the operating budget to address that concern. And just in closing, I think there's one more slide to get ready for the film tax credit. There you go. Thank you so much. Oh, I did it.